should have you here.
Well, I have just gone live. I'm the first one here. So Mike, I will go ahead and I'm going to, I don't see you live in the Fresh Finds one.
Let me try to re-enter.
Hello, Christina. Hello, Mike. Welcome. Nice of you to join us. All right. We are trying to get Mike all set up here. Christina, there's a chat window over on the right. Can you hear us okay? We're having a little audio trouble on Mike's end, and I'm hoping it's just Mike's problem. Okay, wonderful.
You got me, Carl?
I see ya. And I have invited you, and it just says accepted and connecting. So what usually happens is I just see you pop up on the screen.
Eek.
Egads. All right. Mike, I'm going to go ahead and send that invite for you one more time. It says that you are live, and if I invite you on screen, you're joining from a phone, am I right? So it's a little bit trickier.
Right.
I don't know if it has any... Christina, do you want to be my co-host? Totally kidding. Hello, Pam. Nice of you to join us. Welcome. We'll get started at the top of the hour. Get to hear me playing some Beatles so that you can adjust your speakers. And I'm trying to get Mike. He had a mandatory software update right before we started this, so we're working on it. Christina, that's just one of many terrible jokes you'll hear in the next hour. Don't worry, I won't make anyone co-host the show except Mike. He's drawn the short straw. Mike, how's your computer looking? Have you done, what did it say, 4 updates to do?
Almost done.
Well, good. And we'll probably just give up on the phone portion. And
I'm just gonna hang here for a minute. I'll try.
Okay. Christina, I believe you reached out to me yesterday. Thank you for the invite. Looking forward to meeting with you. Pam, I don't recognize your name. Are you on Mike's mailing list? I don't see you at one of our other shows. I'm glad you could join us. Okay. Well, sorry I didn't see you last time, Pam. Wonderful. Pam, I had a bit of fun with Christina and said, Mike's having technical difficulties. Will you be the co-host? Or I won't tell that joke twice. It's not even funny once, let alone twice. All right. Yes, that makes more sense. All right. Well, everybody, welcome to Fresh Finds. I am your co-host, Karl Richter. Joining us soon will be Mike Taylor. I've got him on speakerphone on my smartphone. Everybody, here's Mike. He'll be joining us soon. His computer had to do a quick reboot. So you'll see me looking off to the side here, trying to go ahead and see if I can invite him to join me up on stage. Well, yeah, but I'm sensitive to your time. It is the start of the hour. So today, let me tell you what we're going to do. We are going to start off. I actually have a fun little bit that I've been doing on sort of like why I consider myself a chef and how that relates to learning. So I'm going to share about 5-10 minutes with that. And Mike's got some great tips he's going to share for you. Mike really is amazing. He can't figure out how to join us on the call so far yet today, but this guy really is incredible. He reads the entire internet every day. And real soon, he's going to join us and he's going to show us like how he stores all of his bookmarks and what he does, because he shares all these wonderful resources. And I've always wanted a kind of behind the scenes peek at how he manages all that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We have a fun little theme song that I like to do. And let's see if I can get this all synced up here. Fresh Finds is the show for you if you're a learning geek. Talk to Mike about the email he's Karl blends up tech and food in a new recipe. Join the show and vote for topics that you want to see. We are learning nerds and proud of it. Fresh Finds is cool. This is fun, it's not a lecture, that's our only rule. So sign up and check out topics, pick the ones you like. Then come back to the show and talk about them with Karl and Mike. Okay, wonderful. I don't know how that video ended up getting made. Kind of like this show, it was an idea that Mike and I talked about, and we said, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we started a show called Fresh Finds? And here we are. And we said, gosh, wouldn't it be fun if we had a little screen share, if we had a little comment? And here we go. So I'm going to continue inviting Mike to come on through here. And until he does that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with this. Hey, there he is. Hi, Mike.
Hey, can you hear? Have any sound? No sound?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
How about our audience? Can you all hear Mike? Poor guy. We've been doing this for about 25 minutes trying to get him online and getting his computer working. Can you text in the chat window just to let us know we finally did it and we're all here and we can move forward?
I think Christina might be a huge upgrade today.
We're kidding. We're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. I'm serious.
Well, this is our third episode. Thank you for joining. Thank you if you're watching on the archive. Thank you for making this part of your day. This is a show that Mike and I have known each other for years. We both just love the kind of work that we do, and we wanted to put these shows together as sort of your like behind the scenes look. I'm doing a book that I'm calling eLearning Recipes. I've got a website, eLearning Recipes, set up, and I send out weekly recipes. Mike has been doing a newsletter for a much longer time than I have. He has a wonderful collection of links and resources he shares every week, and we thought this would kind of be a good chance to have a dialogue, a discussion where we can come through and share great things and also learn from you as well. So to help get us started off in that vein, we're going to go ahead. I'll take Mike off the screen here, and I'm going to go ahead and share a slide deck that I put together. This is something that I wanted to do as a warm-up. So what I'm going to do, and is that, it's probably... Swap. There we go. All right. Does everyone see? No. Yes. Did we do it? All right. So just as a way of getting you to participate in the discussion and maybe think through some things, I'm going to play this quick little game that we call analog or digital. Mike and I are both big technology geeks. We love all the new opportunities or things that you can do with it, but we also recognize that sometimes you just need the tool that gets the job done quickest. So the goal behind this game is that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you, I'll tell you a little story, and then you get to pick either option 1 or option 2. So to participate with that, so I've just started a new project, and it is very complicated, and it has lots of moving pieces. And I realized that my ancient 44-year-old brain thought the best way to handle this would be to print up, like with paper and ink, and have like the 3 or 4 most important documents there so that I can look through them. And as I'm reading the other things, that I could look at it. So I want you to read through the 2 different options here, and then we'll have you go to the polls that's there in our window and vote. Are you the type of person that wants the analog way? Would you print it out and keep it at your desk because you like just glancing at it and not having to open it and find it? If you just want to check step 3 that comes up, you don't want to have to go and open the documents. So are you a digital person or an analog person? We have 1 analog. Woohoo! And 2 analogs, no digital on that. So yeah, okay. I'm guessing that's Mike's vote. Yes.
That's me.
Yes.
That's my vote.
So if you want to verify and talk about what your answer is in the chat window, tell us what you like about the printing. What is it that's nice? For me, it's simply cognitive load. I don't have to have 22 things open. If there's like 2 things that are guiding me, I want to just look up, and the only energy I use is eye movement. I don't have to navigate. I don't have to open it. Mike, why do you think that digital's the way to go?
Yeah, I was just typing a chat comment there. See, I think 90-something% of the time digital would be my preference, but there are definitely times I just printed out something today, something I'm going to refer to maybe over time, and I just don't want to have to go and look something up. So I just want to keep it handy. But the majority of the time, if it's on paper, I'm probably going to lose it.
That is a really nice thing, being able to search for it and find it
for that reason.
Not have to remember where you put that piece of paper. I'm exceptionally good at losing things. But yeah, I would agree. And the point of this exercise is to make you choose either or. But sort of the takeaway lesson from the whole thing is that, hey, you don't have to choose either or. When you're a designer, you can try and blend the best of both. And that's sort of what our inspiration is for this show. The last question for this little warm-up activity: imagine you're going on a beautiful trip to Lake Tahoe, and you wanted to take a book. Do you want to take a book? Do you read online? Are you the type of person that wants a paper copy of a book? Or are you the type of person that wants it on an e-reader? So go ahead to the poll and go ahead and vote for the next question. Oh my gosh, I didn't add it yet. There we go.
This one's easy for me.
So I have created the poll. And then again, if you want to share why you like that, you can do that in our chat window here. Again, I'm pretty split on this one. I love the e-reader. I love that I can just go, yeah, audiobook, absolutely. Wonderful choice. Hi, Joe. So yeah, an analog book is nice because you can read it. Oh, you are. Mike, are you analog on this? No problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm probably more digital. I like it because I can read a little bit before bed. I can read a little bit and not have to drag the thing around with me. I like that I can pop up the little Kindle app and see where I'm at and try new stuff. and it stays synced and it remembers where I was reading better than I will in a book. But yeah.
Yeah, I've not gotten over that. I've not made that leap yet. I think there's just something about a book and touching and turning pages that, it's just not the same. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
And Pam sounds like.
When we take our kids to the pool, I always like seeing the parents that have older kids and are there like floating on a raft, just reading a paper book. It looks so relaxing and calm. And I would be very nervous if I took my electronic tablet out there with me. So I definitely think airplanes, I actually like to carry paper because I don't have to worry about the landing and takeoff and closing your devices and any of that, though. I haven't traveled a lot, so maybe that's not an issue anymore. Well, wonderful. Really, again, the takeaway with this is that you can design with the best of both, that I'm forcing you to make a choice, but you don't have to do that in the real world. So that is our, Joe, you missed our Fresh Finds theme song, but that is our quick little warm up here. If you have never been to our show before, well, I'll play it again for you. I need very little encouragement to do that.
Don't encourage him, Joe.
If you're new to this show, the basic format is Mike and I each pick like 10 minutes worth of content that we want to share with you, something we've prepared in advance. And then the rest of this show is sort of a free-flowing, screen-showing conversation. So we've put a number of topics that are there right next to where you just went for polls. You'll see there's Ask a Question, and you can go through and pick the different topics that you like. And then once Mike and I have each done our shared, prepared bit, then you can go in and we'll start answering your questions. So you may be wondering, can I ask my own question? Yes, of course. There's a big red button at the top there once you open up questions and answers. If there's something that's like, hey, I really want to know what you think about Evolve or Articulate Rise, or hey, what's a good way to make boring training interesting? If you have some burning question like that, not just us, but everyone here, we'll try and answer it for you. So this is the sort of tone for our show and what we are trying to do. Mike, I see your connection flickering off and on here.
I'm making sacrifices to the technology gods here and hope
we
that
stand
it will
on the shoulders of people like you, Mike, who bear the brunt of this for us. But do you want to go ahead and screen share and show us? I'm really curious. This is something I've wondered about for at least a decade, and I know it's changed a lot over there, but I'm going to go ahead and close my screen and tell us how you do it, Mike.
Well, let me see if I can get over to the right place. Technology is going to cooperate. Let's see, I think that's the right one. So let's see, there we go. We want that one to come to the center. There we go. So one thing that I think is a good habit is, I read every morning, some mornings more, some mornings less, typically 30 minutes while I'm an early riser. So I've got some time before kids are up and people are running around everywhere. And then what I use to read and keep up with everything is what I'm showing here. So this is my Feedly. So this is where I subscribe to things. Everything comes to me. Now, the nice thing that I like about this is if I just have a few minutes, you notice there on the left, I've got things sort of organized into categories or folders or whatever you want to call them. So I've got a few A-list topics, got a couple B-list topics, and then if I have time, I'll look at the rest. If not, it's no big deal that it's going to be sitting there waiting for me.
What do you mean when you say A-list and B-list?
So those are the things that I want to try to read every day. My A-list is if I just have a few minutes, I can pop in there and I can see my A-list. So that's typically the best things that I've found, the things that I really want to read. So those I typically won't a lot of them, I'll leave to the weekend, or sometimes I won't even read them. I'll just go in and hit mark all read and reset things. So my A-list things are sort of the top things that I really want to see. And
Is this
so
an RSS feeder?
just about
I'm still a little confused about what we're looking at here.
Yep. Let me give you a little tour here. So I mentioned the categories. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit text-wise. So here's one of my A-level categories, right? So you can see right now, I've read them this morning. There's not much new in here. I didn't read much of my B list this morning. So if I'd had more time, I would have come through here. If I expand this, you can see some of the things that I have subscribed to in here. I've got hundreds, I don't know, 700-800 probably subscriptions. And it sounds like that's a lot, but I only ever see it if there's something new. So at any given time, I'm never trying to look through that many sources because I've organized them the way that I want. So it's only, the categories that I've put here, and I only see things if there's something new. So I don't have the problem of going to a website, checking if there's something new, and if there's not, that's a wasted time and a wasted trip, right? So the nice thing about this is everything comes to me and I can organize it the way that I want to take it in. And then even within this, there's a few different views, so you can pick, what's your preference, your personal preference on how would you like to have these served up to you. So here's sort of I think there's 3 or 4 different views. Title only, cards, article view is going to show you the whole thing, I think. And so if I see something I like, then I can click that link and I can go to the website. So some feeds have full feeds where you can get everything right here. Other ones like this one, they just give you sort of a short summary, and then I'll just pop out and read it if I want. Does that help at all? Does that make a little bit more sense about what's going on?
It does to me. Feel free to use the chat if you have questions for Mike.
Yeah. So I like this magazine view for most things. Let me just pop into this presentations folder here. So if I'm reading and I see something that I like, that I want to share, I've got buttons here. I can share to Twitter. I can share to LinkedIn. If I want to email this to myself or to somebody else, so I've got all the kind of common sharing things. I don't typically use these buttons because I'm reading at 4 a.m. and I'll share, I don't know, sometimes 5 or 10 things all at once. And if I do that at 4 a.m., nobody in the United States is probably going to see it. So I use this really nice, one of my favorite sharing tools is called Buffer. And so if I click this Buffer link, what this does is it sort of puts, it gives me the title automatically. I can add some comments. I typically try to add a comment of, why I think this is valuable. I can add an image here. My default is to share to both Twitter and LinkedIn. And then once I have that set up the way I want, I can hit that add to queue. And so those are set to go out at predetermined times. I've got them set, I think, 5 per day for each of those platforms. So I can queue things up a couple of days worth of links and articles, and then those just sort of get slowly dripped out over the course of a day, and I don't have to manually do all of that stuff. People say, well, do you ever sleep, or you must be on Twitter 20 hours a day. And so that Buffer is the secret to kind of doing that if you're sharing. And then if you're going the other way, so if I just want to save this either for myself or for maybe some future reference, Feedly's got this nice feature called boards. So any of these articles that I read, so if this is about presentations, you know, I can hit this add to board, and here are the boards that I've created for myself. And I can add this, if it's a PowerPoint article, I can add it to my PowerPoint board. And then anytime I ever want to come back to that, below my feeds up above, I can come down here. So for example, for my newsletter, if I find something I want to put into my newsletter, I add it to this board. And then everything that I ever save in here, most of these things were finalists. They didn't get in for things that I put into my newsletter, and I can just keep going back. And so that's sort of the intake and the outgoing stuff, and then sort of in the middle where I'm saving and storing and processing. What kind of questions do you have, Karl, or anybody else?
If you have a question, go ahead and type it. My question is, I pulled up the different pricing on the buffer.com link there. Are you doing this on the free plan, or are you going into...
So yes, sort of. So before Feedly, I used to use Google Reader for this, which I still miss. It was really fabulous. So I've been in with Feedly since, if not day one, super early days. So I think I've got sort of some grandfathered features that if you signed up today, you wouldn't have. So I think the free version now, I think you only get three categories. Mm-hmm. There's some, and I think you only get maybe 100 feeds in 3 categories. But if you want to go beyond that, I think it's
$15 a month to have more.
$5
I can paste the pricing in there. I was just curious because you're an individual, not a company trying to do massive marketing, but I'd say for an individual, you're on the high-end power user side of things. And I wondered if what I've seen you doing was my favorite price, which is free.
Yeah. So I'm fairly sure I just looked at this. I think it's 3 categories, 100 total feeds, which I think for most people will get you a pretty good ways down this path. And then, you know, it's $5 a month and probably less than that if you pay for a year at a time. So to me, it's one of the few things that I would pay for if I didn't have some of these grandfathered features that I don't even know how that happened.
So Shelly, you love Feedly, I see. That's wonderful. Do you have anything else that you want to share as far as what Mike, maybe he left out your favorite part? Categories.
Yeah, so, yep. That's a nice thing, Karl. You're talking about being able to, you know, with your reading to be able to pick it up on another device. So this is great if you're standing in the line at Starbucks or waiting on a bus or whatever, right? You can have it on your phone. I like the tablet, so I read in the mornings on my iPad. I like that format. That works for me. That's my favorite, actually. So you can read it on the web, you can read it on your phone. And to me, this is just the most efficient way that I have found to keep up with, kindred spirits for sure, Shelly. And jump in to if I say something different or you may have a different take. But so this is just such an efficient way to keep up with so much stuff. Is it comes to me, I'm consuming it on my terms. You know, a lot of people do email newsletters, but I try to stay out of my inbox as much as possible. And, you know, I don't like going in there. It just makes me grumpy. You just want to have to go in there because it's always other things that people want me to do primarily, you know, more than what I want to do. So, yeah. So, Karl, if you haven't, you should plug into this.
Should. So you write your newsletter and post it on a WordPress site, and WordPress then is going to have its own RSS feed. So if you want to stay out of your inbox, you can still read your own work by going in through that. How do you go through, how do you go from this to your newsletter?
So I actually write it in Google Docs. So I have a template sort of set up, with what I'm going to put. At the bottom, I repeat some sections, apps and design resources, stuff like that. So Wednesday, Thursday, sometimes Friday morning, when I'm ready to pull in those articles, I come to this board and see what I've saved for the week. Pick out typically like top 5 articles that I like the best or I think are most relevant. Sometimes during the week, depending on how the week is flowing and how busy it is, sometimes I'll bop in there. Like I see an article on Monday, I know this is going in. So, I'll start filling it in. And so little bit by little bit, and then Friday morning, you just, add a header image and polish it off. And there's a really great add-in for Google Docs. So you can hit save to WordPress and it creates a new draft post automatically from Google Docs.
That's pretty neat.
And my favorite part is if you've put pictures into your Google Doc, it automatically uploads your photo, so you don't have to do that either. So it's
oh, that's
handy.
good, because I was going to ask what the advantage of doing it in a Google Doc versus just a plain old WordPress post.
Yeah, and then I was just thinking something you said earlier to sort of put it into a L&D sort of context is it's nice that if people want to follow that, so they can grab the RSS and follow it in Feedly or whatever they use, or it's nice to give options to let people. Do you want it via email? Do you want it in your feed reader? Do you just want to come and visit? So it's creating content once, and then it can go out in multiple channels.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments, questions? I've always wondered what Mike does behind the scenes to do all these things. I am not a very big reader. If I have an hour free, I'm going to try and write. So Mike and I are kind of yin and yang on this. I love seeing all the stuff that he does, and I'm busy coming up with wacky metaphors for things. So I'm always impressed by people that really just feed their brains with all these different resources. And
And I'll tell you, I'm impressed with people who make the time to write like you write. So I don't think there's any one right, where do you slide the slider of reading versus writing? Like that's a personal thing. I would say that both are valuable, and I don't think doing 100% of one and none of the other is the right thing to do. But anywhere in between is whatever works for you. We should be doing. Everybody should be doing, I think.
I'm glad you said that, because I used to have feed readers and I just felt guilty. Like it was like stuff that I wasn't reading that I was supposed to be. And the guilt of it, like as Google Reader tapered off, I just let it go. So maybe I can let these back in my life.
Well, you know what? Here's the magic of the power. There's a little button in there that says mark all as read, right? And it's like resetting back to 0, like automatic inbox empty.
It's like going to confession.
And there's no shame. And I use it. I do it.
I'm good with the house.
But there's, and then they also have, this is a really cool thing. Speaking of like sort of housekeeping. Now, if I can find my way back to it here, there is a place where I can go. I think I got to go back to the top here. So I can organize things and it'll tell me, here it is. So in this little settings, it's kind of disguised here. So I've got 796 sources, but here I can see I've got 44 that are inactive, 57 that are unreachable. So I've got 100 that basically are sort of not doing me any good. and I can come in here and I can unsubscribe from all of these and I can clean that up. So I just take those 57 that are unreachable, unfollow them. Yes, don't want them because they're not reaching me anyway. And so every, I don't know, 6 or 12 months, I'll come in here and just sort of clean house, because over time I tend to accumulate things. You know, you find a great site here and you plug into it, and drop it in your, and then every 6 months or a year or so, when I have a few extra minutes, I'll jump in here and clean things up. That's a nice, hey, you've got so many feeds and you read so many articles per day. It gave you some cool statistics that I don't think this one does.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and close you out there, Mike, so that we can have plenty of time for other people's questions.
Absolutely.
Last chance, any questions for Mike? Right. Well, I am doing a whole food-themed series of e-learning things, and I will explain what that means a little bit here in a presentation I call How Your Brain Feeds on Information. So I really like to think of myself as a chef, and I almost never cook. When I do cook, it's usually nothing more complicated than macaroni and cheese. So why do I consider myself a chef? Because I'm in charge of feeding the brains of the people that hire me. I don't work in a restaurant. I'm a blended learning designer. So I help with face-to-face instruction, online, or my favorite, those great on-the-job reference tools that you can look up what you need when you need it. Mike, I want to hear more about your modern workplace and on the job. I really think that's a fantastic part of what we do. But now, these days, we have this whole vibrant world of mobile everything, and we have more access to information than we've ever had before. So I've been thinking of myself as a chef. This is something that I came across probably 10 years ago. And I was reading this article, and it was talking about people's appetite for information. Now, this was like long enough ago that it was back like before smartphones and iPads. It was back when everybody had Wi-Fi and you could sit on your lap and you could go through your Bloglines account and read all this stuff. And this article used the term that I just love so much, an infovore, a person with a voracious appetite for information. So I really think that we've had this massive change in society and that we're lacking some of the tools to really talk about it. We're lacking the vocabulary to say, hey, what's happening to my brain that I can't sit still for 15 seconds? I've got to pull out my phone and read my Feedly, or I'll pick up Feedly. I'll read my Twitter, or check to see who's coming to the Lakers. Like I feel like we've always had these kind of urges, but now we have all these different tools to help us survive. So food for thought has become an all-you-can-eat buffet. We are constantly drowning, surrounded by information. Has this ever happened to you where you're like stuck and your phone doesn't work? Either you drop it and it smashes, or I jumped in the pool with my phone, and of course you have to get it and put it in the rice thing and wait for 2 or 3 days. Has anybody else been through that like 3 days with no phone? It's just stuck in rice and you're waiting to do it. You realize how addicted you've become to these, how much you pull it out, how much you're just ready to do something. It's like, I can't, I don't have my device. We've gotten so attached to these. We check for our information all the time. You ever checked your smartphone when driving? Even though you know it's dumb? These are like really powerful tools. These are things that have really transformed our society. So I love this term infovore. We have this like primal need. That beautiful vor suffix like takes you all the way back to like the land of the herbivores and the carnivores stomping around. We as a species haven't survived because of our teeth and our claws. We've survived by our wits, and that's what's got us where we are. So we have this powerful drive for knowledge. So I feel like I'm a chef because I feed these brains and I try to find the different tools and the different ways to provide the snacks that people are looking for, the little tidbits of information for people to digest. I also do this because it opens up a whole world of wonderful food puns. And it really, like, there's something that you can piggyback on. What you already understand about nutrition really will apply to your brain. So as a brain person, we need to understand the basic mechanism behind how it works. And there you see a neuron and a dendrite. And as we're learning, a physical connection is actually made between these two brain cells. They call it a synapse or a neuron. And to help me explain more about that, neuroscience legend, Jennifer Aniston. So Jennifer Aniston, you may be thinking, gosh, what does she have to do? She's a key part of this really good book. Have you read the book Brain Rules and learned about the Jennifer Aniston neuron? Well, basically what happened with it was they were doing some research and Medina and his team were showing all these different images of people. They showed different pictures and they're looking at a person's brain under an fMRI scan. And they realized that there was one of those synapses, one of those neurons had formed and it would fire anytime it saw anything Jennifer Aniston. So that means, like, you know, her cute haircut from season 1 of Friends, the neuron would fire. When it was her and Brad Pitt, the neuron would fire. When it's her today, it would fire. So this neuron is firing only for Jennifer Aniston, not Christina Applegate, not Kristen Wiig, not other attractive people her size and shape. It was specific to this little concept. The idea of Jennifer Aniston actually becomes something that's in your brain. Of course, we're not hardwired for Jennifer Aniston. If you were trapped under a rock or you grew up in a different culture and hadn't been exposed to her, you wouldn't have that neuron. It wouldn't light up. So what that shows me is that the thoughts that we have, the time we spend thinking about something. If you read Us Weekly every week, there's an article about her like every time. But if you look at her, then you have actually created something in your brain that understands all that. You have really strong synapses about the idea of Jennifer Aniston. Or if you looked at her and you're like, hey, it's the girl from that one show. What's her name? Then maybe you have like a little bit of a connection forming, but it hasn't really like developed well. So my basic idea is that thoughts change your brain in a lot of ways the same as calories change your body. You can't go for one jog and be in shape. You can't like skip one piece of birthday cake and lose 20 pounds. You can't learn Chinese by reading through one PowerPoint deck. You don't develop skills. You don't transform your body. You don't build your brain all instantly. It's like it requires effort and sustained work. It's a very unsexy message. I wish that I could tell you like, hey, 7 tips to make sure you never forget anything. I wish I could do that. I'm not going to stand here and lie and say, these are the tips and this is what you do and buy my 1995 thing and I'll tell you all about it. The sad truth is it takes hard work. So my role as a blended learning designer is to engage with people's neurons. So I've made hundreds of different online modules. Some of them were good, some of them were not. I always feel this need to sort of apologize to people. I'll never forget going to the bank, and this was a bank in San Diego, and it was a block from the beach, and everybody's real like, whoa, dude. The guy was just chit-chatting with me about my business, and I said, oh, I make online training modules. And he goes, oh, I hate you guys. We make all these terrible modules we have to take. And I thought it was funny that he was saying that, but like, I feel the need to apologize for some of the e-learning that I come out there, especially that one where it's like, you can't click next. You've just got to wait until the narrator finishes reading all the bullets on screen. So you just like stare at the little scrub bar, just waiting for it to reach the end so you can like click your way to freedom. That module wasn't engaging. Nobody was interested in. That module is just as good for your brain as these vegetables are for that little girl. It takes all the time to prepare it, takes all the expense and all of that, but ultimately it just gets scraped off into the trash can. Does nobody any good. Doesn't do a lick of good. It's like those words that come in one ear and out the other. If your training is like that, So I'm also a parent. I'm a learning chef and a parent of 4 boys. The oldest one, they all love the Fresh Finds song. I have 3-year-old twins, and they've been making me, like every night this month, they make me sing, Fresh Finds is the show for you if you're a learning geek. They make me do the whole thing. Dinner time at our house is a little bit crazy, probably the best word for it. But as a parent, I'm always looking for this like sweet spot between like, what can I get them to eat and what do I want them to eat, and how can I like find that sweet spot between the two of them. And I really think as a learning designer, part of the reason I think of myself as a chef is because I'm looking for that sweet spot. How can I make this not just informative? There's a lot of those modules. Those modules I feel like apologizing for. They are accurate. They are detailed. They are complete, but they are not interesting. So if there's not even a sliver of interesting, you're not going to have effective designs. So there's different ways, different techniques, different recipes that you can use to help find that sweet spot and make your training interesting and appealing. So I'm not a good chef. I don't cook anything very sophisticated, but I do want everyone to have food to take away with them. So to wrap it up, my key points here are that we feed on information, and all the stuff Mike showed us with Feedly is like a perfect example of that. There's a dramatic change that's happened to us, and we are infovores. We also, as designers, have to find the sweet spot between interesting and informative. If we're not actually actively engaging that neuron, we're not building your brain. It's just the vegetables that you scrape off and go in your plate. All right. So that's me. I love lunch. These are slides that I'm doing for a presentation real soon. And thank you for letting me share. So I'm curious, fellow learning nerds that are here in this show for you, and I mean that in a very affectionate way. Has infovore been a term that you all have come across before? I read this like a long time ago. You have, good. Because you read the whole internet every day, and I talk to you about it like every time we meet. But is that something like, am I the only one that's seen this term? I wish that I thought of it. I think it's brilliant. But I really do think that we have like cravings for information and a need. Our survival depends on our knowledge, especially in this economy. Like it's based on that. So, okay. I'm going to take your silence as either a no or as a I am an infovore who is off wandering this wonderful world of unlimited information, and I've found something else. So
where everybody has a post-nap lunch.
Yes.
Or post-lunch nap.
Post-lunch nap, during lunch nap. So I've looked down here in our questions and answers, and we have 1 vote that has come through here. So if you want to go in and pick one of these, I would be happy to, again, go down here to the ask a question part and vote. But I'll go ahead and answer the one that is the most popular choice here. Let me screen share again. So my weekly newsletter goes out with different e-learning recipes. So I have a whole food metaphor, sort of a blended learning food pyramid that you can find on there. And then each week I try and put up a different recipe. And the one from that post was skills pay bills. And in this one, I thought I would share a little screenshot of a project that I did. I'm not going to read this to you, but the basic idea was, hey, let's make it so completing the module, they actually have to do real world work. I don't care. This was for a manufacturing client where they were actually going in and building little components that go inside electrical things. So basically anything that goes on a circuit board, they manufacture those. So the training is like, great, you understand all the different dimensions and things that you have to do, but I need to see you actually do your job. So what we did is we put together a blend that had a very traditional LMSE type module. And then in the very last question, we had on-the-job trainers. So instead of using, well, there's a bunch of different ways that you did it. What we did was the easiest for us. and we came up with, this is just a fill in the blank question. And we put it in here, and we gave all the OJTs. We had like 15 OJTs, so they all got a secret password. I'll say that louder. It was a secret password. But the secret password would only be shared with the OJTs. And what they would do is the person would do the first 20 slides. And then at the very end, they would go and practice. And then they'd pull up the module and say, hey, took the training. I've got it. I've done some practice. Now I'm ready to do my sort of like field verification or just like verify that we can do that. So they would pull up the module. It would automatically resume to this is the last slide in the module. So the on-the-job trainer would actually just watch them. They'd walk around with an iPad because we're fancy like that. And we'd walk around with an iPad and they would just say, okay, this person knows all the equipment. They can adjust the torque. They put the housing on and they enter their process order transaction. So then they would go through and the OJT would like sign off and verify that they completed it. So it was kind of neat when we ran our reports. We could see which OJTs were good and which ones weren't, because nobody had completed anything, or maybe I shouldn't say good, I should say like on board, because when you run your completion for like the new hires, who else completed all this training, we could see which OJTs were good about going and verifying that and which weren't. But yeah, it was super simple. It was very easy, just to fill in the blank question, unlimited attempts. So you have to get it right to continue. The one thing that we did learn, because we're doing iPads, you know what happened? I tried to put in like the company founder name. The iPad would remember it. So it would start, as soon as you typed a few letters, it would try and autofill the password for you. So if you do a technique like this, we ended up using a number. So we used the number, the year the company was founded. So we put that in, and numbers don't try to autocomplete. But yeah, so if you've never seen one of my e-learning recipes before, the basic idea is I look at the different learning technologies as the ingredients. You know, you need a coach, you need stuff to do, you need a rubric, you need all of these different ingredients, and this is what you're going to combine together following the directions. So find the skills, design it, give them a fill-in-the-blank quiz, run reports. So yeah. All right. Mike, I feel like I've been talking forever and ever. Do you want to take the next question?
That's okay. More Karl is a good thing.
Depends who you ask, I guess.
No, you at the end of your recipes things there, you talked about synapses firing and stuff like that. And you also asked earlier about the learning while working virtual conference that happened this week. And so those two sort of came together in the thought that I had when you said that, because what I talked about was things that L&D and training people should steal from marketers. And that was, one of the top things was, it doesn't matter how good your stuff is. If you can't get their attention, if you can't get that initial attention and keep it, then the best stuff in the world isn't any good. And marketers are really good at doing things that are in tune with the way that our brains work and the way tapping into what our brains pay attention to. And it's not bullet points, and it's not, in this course you will learn objectives, right? Like, so if you get people's attention and then you throw boring stuff at them, you've just thrown that opportunity away, not only for this time, but the next time something comes out, they're expecting boring stuff. So it really resonated with me, and it's a valuable opportunity when you get somebody's attention that you should use it wisely and appreciate the value of that.
Yeah,
attention.
I'm honored that you guys would come to a show like this to hear me and Mike nerd out about all this stuff that we love. Like it's the most precious commodity you have. And I'm not just saying that because I have little kids, but it's like so hard to find time to do all the wonderful things that you can. So I try and design for anybody in my audience. I want it to be worth their while and relevant and interesting, because if you're not going for that, it's not going to change anything.
There's a section in that talk, and you talk about how human behavior is really controlled by your subconscious mind and emotional part of your brain way, way more so than most people think. Most people think, yes, I'm a very logical person and I weigh the facts and I line out the pluses and minuses. That's not the way it works. The way it works is we react insanely fast based on our subconscious brain. And then after the fact, then we will we'll backfill the logic for why we did something emotionally. So it's really fascinating to me. But one of the most fascinating things is our subconscious brain. It's like this pre-programmed set of behaviors, and we have most of them by the time we're 6 years old. And so I ask people, like, if you're designing for somebody who's 6 years old, like, how would you design? And people usually say color, language, and rewards, and all of these things. And then I follow that up with, well, what of those things do you not like as an adult, right? So I'm a really big believer of, we don't design for children or adults. We just design for humans because it's all the same brain, largely. So anyway, so your comment resonated with me. I just wanted to kind of throw that out.
It looks like what you're saying's resonated here with Pam and Christina as well. It's for those of you who haven't seen Mike's site, this is it. He's got all kinds of wonderful things here. This effective. What were you at, Mike? Was it a couple nights ago? You did a workplace learning. That's separate from what I'm showing here. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, this is different. So this post is for something that I have coming up. So I'm trying to, if I'm being honest, I'm trying to get some people to help me out and make my talk for me, along with me, maybe. Actually, I'm just trying to get some ideas because I had a conversation probably on Twitter recently about, what are the things that people should have? What are the skills you should have to be successful? And, part of that is being current. It's not talking with, old outdated ideas like learning styles and that sort of stuff. And it just fit really well with this other article that I had read about T-shaped skills. So it talks about you really need to have a breadth of skills, and then you go deep in one or two targeted areas. And so I just started thinking, like, well, what are those skills on those dimensions? Like, what are the ones that go across broadly? And then everybody will pick different skills or different categories to go deep in. But I'm just curious, and I'm really in early stages of sort of trying to contemplate those types of things and how something like this would fit together.
I wish I knew what to tell you what to do. I feel like I get the basic high level of this. Maybe I'm up here and I'm not all the way down on this, but
yeah. So obviously, it's somewhat role specific, right? So if you're a developer, it's going to be different than if you're a consultant or a manager. And but I think that piece that goes broad, I think there's probably a fair number.
is your audio frozen on us? Or are you deep in thought? Well, I'm going to just guess that he has... go ahead and close this one out. Let me go ahead and pull up one of our questions here. We have no votes, so the first person to type into the chat window is what we'll talk about next.
And all that kind of stuff.
You're back.
A face made for radio. I'm trying to hide out back here.
Come on. Your audio cut out for a little bit here. So I've moved on, and we'll see. Does anyone want to talk about any of these topics? I'm really excited that YouTube has made streaming so that you can go. Obviously, we're using not YouTube, but we could just as easily have had this show through their new streaming platform. So if anyone is curious about that, text in the chat window, let us know. I've got a whole e-learning recipe metaphor. What I'm trying to work on is a book that you can open for inspiration about how to make your e-learning projects better. And some of it is different technologies that you learn that you can combine. Some of it I'm calling subtle seasonings. This one is about 3 different text effects that we do. So just some of the tips and tricks that I've learned as a developer. I know there's lots of times where I'll look at Mike's slides and be like, man, those are great. And I'll look at my slides and I'll be like, mine just look like PowerPoint. So slowly over time, I try and read and brush up on those skills. So that's what subtle seasonings are, different presentation tips, the little design information. Just this week, I got the new version of Camtasia. So if you want me to fire it up and show you some of the new templates and things, thank you, Pam. This eLearning Brothers library of assets, they have their whole library of cutout characters and things like that. I think there's advantages to that as a contractor and eLearning developer. They've been really helpful for me at times. A lot of their templates, I think, are yucky. But if anybody wants to talk about that. And then, yeah. Oh, geez, Mike, we should have clicked this button earlier. So if you're watching on the archive, you can actually go into the questions and answers, and you can click either in the chat or in the questions and answers part, and it jumps to that part of the webinar, which I think is pretty cool.
Did you vote for eLearning Brothers?
Oh, did they? Oh, shoot, because I don't refresh my screen. No wonder I can't see any votes.
Yeah, there's one there. I'm generally curious about asset resources and libraries in general.
Well, let me share my screen. I'm seeing like no votes at all for anybody. So sorry about that. Yeah,
there was one
good.
For that.
Let's do it. So I will screen share and share. I have paid for this for the last year. This is eLearning Brothers. They are wildly popular. Mike, what do you call it? Big hair? Some of their stuff is wow and pizzazz, but I don't always see the like pedagogy behind it. The, hey, this will help people learn. What I like from this is they have all these different, so if you go in, I think it's $500 a year, and I can come in and I can get, not that I use Flash, and I don't usually use Captivate, but they have some different styles of some of these different things. They have some storyline templates that you can go through and get. Really what I like best are these cutout people libraries. So you can go in and you can pull this up. And so then you'll see that they've got all these different people. So you can actually go through and filter. Like I just started working with a construction company. So I went through and I went to industry up here and I said industrial. And then now it just shows me all people that look like they, you know, people with tool belts and hard hats and things like that. So what's nice is you can go in and pick any of these characters and look at that. Here's Isabella. There are so many pictures of Isabella. So I think one of the big barriers to saying like, oh, I'm going to do this great. And Storyline has a lot of this built in. But honestly, like you can make an interesting story just using PowerPoint. It doesn't have to be a super complicated thing. But you could come in and say, okay, you know, she wants you to think about it again or she's not. So you can get any of those images. They're all transparent. So you just drop them right into your slides. It's been a good time saver for me. But I wondered what other people
Karl,
thought.
I'm sorry. Have you ever used eLearning Art?
I have not.
So it looks very similar when it comes to characters. So same kind of filters. You can filter for industrial and female and professional and casual.
Yeah. What's the gentleman who runs? His name's Brian.
Yeah, Brian is. Well, he moved. I think he's out in California, I think, or Lake Tahoe, somewhere out west.
Mm-hmm. Anybody that's there, know this is not a poll, but if you want to use the chat and share any tips or thoughts on this, oh wow, time flies when you're having fun. Well, I guess I will wrap it up and say, hey, if you are watching the archive and were interested, there is the last page that we pulled up. And thank you all. Again, your time is appreciated and your interest. This is something that Mike and I enjoy talking about all month. And we enjoy getting together and sharing with you all. Hopefully you got something out of it. And we look forward to seeing you next month.
Like you should have like the rap song as the walk-off music.
We can do that.
Play one word, unless you want to sing it.
Maybe I'll sing next month. But yeah, I have a little soundboard set with sound effects that we haven't been able to use yet. But yeah, we can clap too. Yay! Great show, everybody.
Fresh Finds is the show for you if you're a learning geek. Talk to Mike about the email he sends every week. Karl blends up tech and food in a new recipe. Join the show and vote for topics that you want to see. We are learning nerds and proud of it. Fresh Finds is cool. This is fun, it's not a lecture, that's our only rule. So sign up and check out topics, pick the ones you like, and come back to the show and talk about them with Karl and Mike.
Bye-bye.